Welcome to Florida's Drinking Report, brought to you by Sailfish Brewing Company. We're here live in Fort Pierce again today.
Amazing.
I'm your captain, Dave Boucher, joined again by Brian Tonis and my co-captain.
Hey-o.
And Emily's back. Welcome back, Emily.
Hey, Emily!
I'm back and I'm better.
And we're joined today here by Philip Busch, president of Southern Eagle Distributing. Philip, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being on. So, and sticking with the drinking report today, what's everybody drinking? Brian, what do you got?
Getting it while I can. Sailfish Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
all
solid.
the cans sold out. We got some left at the brewery here, and I'm getting it all in while I can.
All right,
Yeah.
good job, man. Philip, what do you got?
Yeah, I followed Brian's recommendation and went with the Oktoberfest as well.
Solid choice. Emily.
Light tackle, but I did guzzle down the Oktoberfest
right.
prior to this.
I'm right there with you. Well, I didn't have Oktoberfest yet, but I got another light tackle.
And spoiler alert, Emily and I had some Dano's coffee tequila beforehand, so
Beautiful. It's beautiful. If you haven't had it, you should.
it's one of the best tequilas in the world. Dano's,
Period.
and I mean, good God. That's,
I mean, period. That's it.
end of story.
Little
End of
Dano's
story.
Brought to you by a great distributor, too.
Oh, Southern Eagle.
We should have the president on the podcast.
Honestly.
If you're not with AB, then
Right.
F you.
If you don't.
Emily, did you just tell us we're number one in the state?
Number one in the state for Dano's Tequila Coffee. Dano's Tequila, period. Period in the whole entire state. And we are aligned with the whole AB network and Southern Eagle. No surprise.
Zero
Number
surprises.
one, always number one. Period.
Dynamite.
All right, Daytona Beverage and Carol, you guys got some work to do.
Step it up.
Step it up.
I didn't say it.
Chris Buller, where you at?
Calling shots. This is awesome.
Starting this thing off right today.
Yeah, it's been so great to kind of see this thing evolve to exactly what we wanted, showing everybody the inside of the trade, trying to make it seem a lot more fun than it is, and it's really a lot of fun. And then at the same time, the not about beer stuff has been awesome. I think those are our most viewed episodes.
Well, I listened to, Nate released the one with Mike and Kenny yesterday, and listened to that. The information, I mean, if you're just listening to it,
Right.
A lot of good information on there about conservation, what Captain's is doing, and just environmental conservation awareness. That whole thing.
and I
was
think
great.
shined a light on a really big thing: ice cubes and beer.
Yes,
That was the biggest thing.
we
the
call
biggest
that
takeaway.
the holiday.
We call that on holiday or the
Say
Captain
that
Mike.
again?
So Mike Holiday drinks a lager with ice cubes in it.
And his reasoning?
It dilutes it and it keeps it colder longer.
Okay.
Well, he
Yeah.
also mentioned he was a wine drinker.
It has something to do with his wife and
Yeah.
how
You
much beer
know.
he had. Could never really tell. So
Women
it's a longer
influence
story,
more
yeah.
than y'all know. And if
Yeah, you guys
ice
do.
cubes go in your beer, then
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that. Let's choke that one down.
For sure. What a horrible thing.
All right. Well, this podcast is a beer podcast, not always about beer, but today's podcast is about beer and the beverage industry specifically.
Right.
So, like I said, joined today again by Philip, Southern Eagle Distributing, right in the Treasure Coast down in Palm Beach County. So, Philip, just kind of dive in. Tell us a little about yourself. I mean, you came up in this industry.
I did.
Yeah. Did you always think you're going to go into this industry growing up in it?
I think my dad turned 40 when I was 12.
Okay.
He had a big party right here in Fort Pierce on a big yacht, right? At 12 years old, I got up in front of like 500 people,
Wow.
and I just said, "Hey, Dad, I'm ready for you to retire at any point in time." So I pretty much knew I was born for this industry.
Excellent. So, I mean, coming up, at that early age, knowing you knew what you wanted to do, who did you look up to? Who were the people that you surround yourself with? I mean, how did you go through that education process in this industry? I mean, it's not just beer, it's distribution, and that's just a big part of how we get this beer out there.
Right. I mean, look, quite honestly, growing up in the Anheuser-Busch family, having my grandfather and my uncle to look up to, and what they accomplished in their careers, I mean, it was kind of more of like I aspired to be that.
Gotcha.
And then from a distribution standpoint, it was interesting, coming in. I love Southern Eagle. I always wanted to be there when I was a kid. And then, the people there make the company. And so even back then, you had Daryl Bowie and Philip Piscopo, Jim Eves type guys that were great, mentors. And then, my favorite, probably Paul Trabolsi, just even though he wasn't in the beer industry,
Good old Paul.
CFO,
Yeah.
I love
he's always a good drinking buddy.
Well, that's an excellent thing, and you see that in a lot of industries, and kind of going into maintaining the culture you've already developed, in that, kind of people aging out of certain professions, and how do you pass down that attrition, that information, that knowledge, and keep that culture going, through that transition period. And I feel like a lot of us at our age at this table, for the most part, are kind of in that transition period right now, where younger guys coming up, a lot of the older guys have showed us how to do it the right way, or starting to phase out a little bit. I mean, how does that actually happen without saying to force it? But I mean, how do you influence that, I guess?
I mean, well, at Southern Eagle, we believe in nepotism. So Paul's son, Michael, is his replacement.
Simple answer right there.
That's incredible.
Keep it in the family always.
Most companies are like, nepotism, don't go there. Southern Eagle, double down.
You guys just dove right in.
Yeah.
Throw right
Philip
into
Busch
it.
used to run sales, and now Ryan's running sales. So.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
But I think that dives into this incredible culture that Southern Eagle is. I've had the great joy, and maybe not the greatest joy in the world, to work with basically every wholesaler in the state throughout my entire career, and I've never seen a machine like Southern Eagle. Unanimously,
Facts.
People love working for the company. You have the banners outside that say, best place to work, like 10 years in a row. I don't necessarily see that as nepotism. I see happy dads, happy moms, and kids that want to continue.
I worked
that.
there.
Yeah.
I can say it was like the best place I've ever worked at, especially in this industry. Like, period, point blank.
And
so
it's
Appreciate that, Emily.
Been in the car with.
That's sarcasm.
At
You
least,
guys can hear that? So.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, that was
I
honest
asked
on
her.
my end.
I asked her before the show, like, you're gonna not dog me too bad today, right?
I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a little thunder lightning with it.
No, but it's unanimous across the board. Like, you're in the car with any of the teammates at Southern Eagle, and usually you can get a kernel if someone is like displeased about something or upset about. It's all gung ho. You don't get any of that. Yeah,
Consistency.
Yeah.
correct. And it's like, these are happy people.
Yeah, I mean, I think we try
shows.
to treat our people like people and not
Yeah.
numbers, and we really strive to create a family atmosphere.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I think maybe what sets us aside a little bit is that once you're in the family, we want you to be happy, we want you to grow, we want you to prosper, and you know that you're going to be taken care of. If you have a medical issue, if you have something like that, like, the company's not going to turn their back on you at a cost, right? So for us, it's really about trying to create a family atmosphere in a company.
Yeah, treat people how you'd want to be treated.
Right.
more or less.
And again,
Right.
just saying from working there, that it's so true, because I mean, I still, even in conversations, will say we when I'm talking about Southern Eagle. I'm like, oh well, we're doing this, and I'm like, oh, you don't work there anymore. Like, you don't work there, but it's still you've created such a culture where you still feel a part of it, and you still feel family, even if you aren't there anymore.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm working with a marketing company out of Vero, and they gave me a portfolio of what they'd like to accomplish with us. And somehow they got a quote from me that life's too short to work for an asshole. I'm like, wait, where did you pull that from? And they're like, it's out there, so.
Oh, just wait for the next one. It says, we believe in nepotism.
No, but it's something. I think for our perspective too. I mean, I've known you for a decent amount of time and got to know you specifically more in the past couple of years, and a lot of things we've tried to do here is try to emulate what you guys have created at Southern Eagle, and we do consider ourselves very part of you guys, and that culture and how to establish that and how to maintain that. And
on that point, like, as far as partnerships and the company culture, I think partnerships are important, especially what we
100%.
do, right? We're the distributor. We're the middleman. Our partners, they do their marketing. We go execute, right? And so with Sailfish in particular, I've known you, 12 years? In the last few years, we've really bonded and said, hey, what do we need? I know we've had a few misses, especially.
taking them all right.
I think you were giving me a grief about the hard tea thing, but but I mean, there's not a
We
better,
don't say that name anymore, so no. Yeah.
It's still out in the market if you want to buy it.
That's not a lie. I can tell you that 18 places it's still at.
We should probably just go buy that back at
Yeah,
this
why don't
point.
you buy it back?
No.
It's fragile now. You can't touch it or it'll explode. So
Well,
Doth have too
Turn
much
into a
blood.
bomb.
but we talked about this on podcast 1, and it's like, we learned a lot through that process, right? And I don't think there was a more successful brand launch. And maybe Hazy was up there as far as launching a brand and getting it out there. But for us, like, we learned right away, like, we're not an F&B brewery. We make damn good beer.
But at the same time, it shows like the partnership we have,
Correct.
right? Like,
Yeah.
we had a need. Sailfish has got such a recognizable brand in the Treasure Coast and growing it in Palm Beach. And it was like, hey, Dave, this is something I think could be beneficial to both of
Yeah,
us.
I mean, I came to you and said, how can we help
Right.
round out your portfolio? What do you need help in?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like light tackle, right?
Mhm.
You guys had it, and we, it wasn't really available, and then we said, hey, let's do a big campaign about it,
Yeah.
around it. And so that's a type of partnership, I think, between brewer and distributor. Like, it's meaningful.
No, and you can pick up the phone and have respectful but honest conversations with your partners there at Southern Eagle, and
Right.
get realistic feedback, like good or bad. Just tell me the truth. What's actually happening. Let's fix it if it's bad.
Never been in a scenario where I felt like smoke was being blown. Everything was honest. It's like, hey, here's where you guys need to pick it up. Southern Eagle to us. And I'm like, thank you for that feedback. We'll pick that up and we'll run with it. And sure as shit, things turn around. If you don't have those conversations, you'll just be spinning your wheels.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from a partnership standpoint, right? Like, there's got to be candid transparency. And you might not like it, but I'll never forget, like, J. Paul Pepin from Pepin Distributing over in Tampa. And when the craft beer boom was happening in 2008, 2009, 10 in Florida, J. Paul, I'd like talk about mentors, like he was somebody I gravitated towards. And he just had such a passion about craft, and it was awesome, right? And so we traveled all over the country, go and meet different craft brewers, and it was a fun, exciting time trying to sign up these people, right? And I'll never forget sitting in a meeting, I think it was in a hotel room. We're sitting outside waiting for the next distributor to leave. If I remember correctly, we were drinking wine out of a Capri Sun, basically. It was, I don't know if that ever
That sounds
materialized.
So it was a Ziploc bag with a straw.
We just have a canned wine now.
If this was at NWBA in Las Vegas, I
Yeah.
know the wine, I know the pouch.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I'll never forget, he
It
told
was
us,
ridiculous.
I mean, they went down pretty quick.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Because we all love a Capri Sun. I mean,
Oh, no.
period.
In that Vegas heat, that sucker went down quick. Yeah.
But J. Paul said, told this brewery that, look, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. And if your product's not good, and I think that transparency resonated with me, like, hey, look, if we're partners, we got to be true partners. And if your product is missing the boat a little bit, if anybody wants to know, it's probably you.
Yeah.
That's something I think we talked about last week. How refreshing it is to have people just shoot you straight.
Yeah.
And we're in such a salesmanship mentality all the time,
Right.
and we're always in trying to sell something, or have that mode turned on, and just being like, I learned a lot, honestly, talking to Mike Holliday in that last podcast that just aired. Just like, I just say what I feel,
Right.
like that's a dying breed nowadays, because we're such like trying to just make everybody happy all the time, and just shoot you straight and be honest.
I find a lot of people new to the game think that if they have a nice label, if they have loud marketing, if they have purchase social media followers, well, that shit's done, yada yada.
Definitely.
But if the juice in the can or the bottle or the tap is not even close to what your marketing looks like, you're done. It's Chinatown.
Well, I've had so many breweries come to me asking this advice, starting up, whatever it is, and I mean, yet to want to listen to me, but they, you tell them, like, it's difficult to get that product on the shelf.
Right.
Your most important thing is that rate of sale, getting that product to move. How are you going to do that?
Right.
That's the most important thing, and developing a relationship with your wholesalers. They are not there to grow your brand. It's your job to come up with a plan, present it to them, and they're going to help you grow your brand,
Right.
and what you put out there. But you put the work in.
Right.
It's not just hand it off to them and say, hey, sell my beer.
I mean, and you also, really taste.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's gotta be good quality.
Quality is everything, right?
No,
And
in
consistency.
This industry, we
going
have
back
to
to that.
establish trust through consistency and reliability.
Right.
I mean, we do that QC all the time. We look at what people are drinking. We look at the data that shows, like, this type of beer is trending negatively for the last 10 years. We should implement, like, that's how hazy came about. It's not that we saw that a bunch of people were making a hazy IPA. It's what's actually trending and what works. And do we have something in the book that, we could either spin off or use and just rename? And it was just a long, arduous process to get to this, but it's been one of the more successful stories that we've had is this hazing.
No, it's been a great
Meaningful.
partnership too.
It's
yeah.
very
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah.
So, Philip, you took over Southern Eagle when?
2012, I believe.
Okay, 12. So you're going on 14 years, 13 years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Hey, were you there that night at the Stamp?
Yep.
It was. It was you, Nick.
It was you.
We were
And,
in the back alley of the Stamp.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Nobody got
Alden.
stabbed.
No. Yeah, it was Alden.
Alden, yeah.
And
What's the other guy? The guy that moved to...
yeah, Colorado or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
That was with
Walking Tree.
Walking Tree.
Yeah. We're not holding back,
That
so
was,
yeah, whatever.
No.
That was the best shit ever.
No,
Maybe have the camera on Emily and Dave during that part. that was the best shit you've ever done.
that wasn't me calling them out or
No,
anything.
no, for sure.
No, but I do remember that distinctly.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those funny memories, and Nick brought it up. And it's like, yeah, we were all sitting there, and then each of you went and created your own brewery, Alden with Orchid, and
How's that guy's name? It's on. It starts with an A. A?
yeah, no, and his dad was in the Rotary
Adam
Club.
Avery.
No.
Here's the walking tree.
Yeah, he was one of the founders.
I can see his face. I just can't
I know.
think of his
Is he
name
still
right
there?
now. No, he's not.
No.
there
Okay.
anymore. Yeah.
Great, I mean, nice guy. But it was funny. I was like, look, at that point when you said what made me get in it, I mean, I wanted to start a craft brewery too.
Mhm.
That was when the J. Paul era was happening. I was like, hell, like,
Yeah, I mean, Sailfish's conversation started with Lily, Nick, Philip, and I initially.
Yeah.
Initially, and then obviously Philip, you went down your path with Southern Eagle, which,
Right.
you know.
But it
obviously-
was like, whoever creates the first one's gonna, and you and Walking Tree and Orchid, you know,
Yeah, we were all at the same time.
yeah, the original three.
We were the first ones to actually have a brick and mortar.
Sailfish was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally called up Nick one day and they said, I did a start yourself online company for Sailfish and let's go find a spot. And
Yeah.
that was it.
Love the name, love the branding. I think you guys nailed it.
Yeah, no, it's so far
Didn't
so
you
good. So yeah.
get that logo? You just kind of tapped it online and said,
It was my old marketing assistant.
Okay.
My
It's
previous career.
$30
Wait,
and like
yeah.
$30 and some
This
beer.
is news to me because going back to Nick's ego,
Oh.
to Nick
So you'll hear
create the
some real
logo?
stories.
he created this. I thought single-handedly.
No. From what I remember on the podcast, he had an Ed Hardy painting.
Listen, there's the
Yeah,
podcast
that was
version
great.
and there's the real version.
Right.
So-
And then the version I got from 4 to 5 sources is that you paid someone $30 and a 6-pack of beer.
it was $50, no beer.
Right.
At the time, we didn't have any beer to give them.
Right.
And it was my old marketing assistant, Rachel. Shout out to Rachel. And she, digitized the logo for us, so we actually use it and trademark it, and that was it.
So for the last 12 years, I've been under the impression or the assumption that Mrs. Bischoff created it.
Cheers.
Hey!
Sorry.
Nick,
Oy. That's fun.
Anywho, let's moving on. Going back to what I asked earlier when you took over Southern Eagle, so that's going on 13 and a half years at this point. Obviously, the industry's changed a lot. 'Cause that's
it's
about the
huge.
same amount of time we've been around.
Yeah.
Is 13 years, and yeah, I mean, I just remember opening up. I mean, craft beer as it was 13. We were the first brewer in Treasure Coast. We were the first craft brewer you guys signed
Right.
at that time.
right?
And the industry was just different at that point. And talk a little about that, like how that's changed, good and bad, I guess, over the past 10
Yeah, I mean,
decade.
in 2008, you got to thank Anheuser-Busch sold InBev.
Yep.
My dad,
Thank you,
love him.
Miranda.
Angel.
Very
Little
thankful.
beer angel. Thank
Probably
you.
want to say, Philip,
Yeah.
another refill.
Oktoberfest?
Yeah, sure. one more.
yeah.
Brian's
One
going to
more.
try and convince you to drink a light tackle again, but yeah.
No.
Not a chance.
He's really pushing it on me.
I mean,
We love
kind
light
of my
tackle here.
gig to a certain degree, but at the same time, Oktoberfest is pretty damn good too.
It's very good.
Actually, you guys nailed this one.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, solid beer.
I look forward to it every
So,
year.
Yeah.
so my dad, diehard AB, his father was CEO, and when the company sold, I was actually out in San Diego working for him, for AB, and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm going to sell." I'm like, wait. I knew I wanted at least an option to run the company. I loved it, loved the people, always have, always will, and when I came back, and San Diego was booming with craft.
Oh, that time?
That's
Yeah.
left Florida.
That's where it came from.
When
Yeah,
I left
I mean-
Florida, and it was like,
Yeah.
what is craft?
Were
And
you
you went
living
out-
out there?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Did you go out there to work with another AB wholesaler to kind of learn?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And so I was like, whoa, what is all this stuff? Ballast Point and
Stone was a big one.
Stone was huge. And actually, what was the one guy that had a bunch of restaurants? He was a heavier
Gordon Biersch.
Gordon Biersch.
Leave it to Brian. You always have it. You always
Actually, I
have
had
it.
one of their beers at the Atlanta airport yesterday flying back.
There you go. Yeah.
They're still around?
Oh, yeah. There was a restaurant in the Atlanta airport.
They pulled out of distribution, but all their restaurants are still open.
No, they closed the one in Miami, I think. I don't think that's around.
Everything
now.
closes in
Yeah.
Miami. so.
Dan Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was awesome. Probably one of the funniest, good guys to be around. So when I came back, it was like, wow, everything's kind of starting to change. And then Florida, it's like exploded in craft overnight in that 2009-10 era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I forget your question, but
Just
And
how it
cheers.
changed over the past decade and just how it's impacted or just,
I
you
mean,
know.
think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was what, a few breweries in Florida?
Yeah, we're the 42nd, and that was in 2012.
Yeah,
And now
Thomas
there's
and I
350 now?
right.
More, maybe more, I don't know.
So the market exploded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good or bad. I think we can talk about that later. Like,
Yeah.
what's that mean? Look, I think the more exposure beer has and trying to get, you know, to every consumer is great. But, you know, during that time, it was probably the most exciting time in the industry, honestly.
I concur. Yeah.
Well, I mean, being the first brew in the Treasure Coast, I mean, we always use the term that White Marlin was the gateway drug to craft beer on the Treasure Coast, because that was the first beer people were actually able to consume that was like a good transitional beer, you know,
Right.
from something else that they used to be drinking that was more of a larger brand. And that education process was just, I mean, that was a lot of work. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know, getting people exposed to it, getting them accustomed to, like, there's so much trepidation with the fear, oh, I can't drink craft beer.
Right.
Well, have you tried one? You know, and like going in endless samplings and beer fests you go to get people warmed up to it. And that was like the biggest fear I had after a few years opening up, where people are asking me, hey, are you worried about more breweries, craft breweries moving to the area? I said, no, like bring them on. Like,
Yeah.
let's build
You've
a
always said that,
destination,
yeah.
but you have the potential of a lot of bad beer out there.
Right.
And people just open up a brewery to open up a brewery. It's
Right.
like, well, if no passion's behind it, our beer was not great when we started, but it's gotten better, and we continuously improve
Yeah.
on that. But like,
But I think you hit on something. Look, you guys started off probably inconsistent.
oh, hell yeah.
You know, you had a lot of consumer feedback of like, okay, I drink it, tastes like this one day, another taste another day. But the one thing you guys can be proud of is like you keep tweaking until like this Oktoberfest, for example, probably better than the Oktoberfest you had last year.
Yeah, everybody says that every year, but
Yeah.
it's just
Every year it gets better, yeah.
It gets
Right.
better, yeah.
Right.
Well, everything was such a hit back then too, because I think that a lot of the consumers didn't know what they were buying, you know, and everything was available at breweries that you've never heard of. I remember Oscar Bluesdale's Pale Ale. People like, in a can, you're out of your mind, you lunatic. I'm not paying $9.99 for, you know, this 6% Pale Ale in a can. Get out of here. Now everyone's in cans.
Right.
I mean, that dichotomy is drastically shifting.
Yeah.
You know,
I think one of the examples, just to talk
Yeah.
about how funny it is, like the Hortons, I know they're investors with
oh
you.
yeah, Danny and Ben, great guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Just salt of the earth. Just
True
awesome
blue
people.
light lager drinkers, right?
Yep.
5 years after investing, or whenever it was after investing with Sailfish, it's the only beer you can find on their boat, right?
I remember introducing Danny to sours.
It was probably a mistake.
Oh, he went hog wild on sours, man.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were like, sours were the craze, and we had some in distribution, and we had like 5 sours on draft, and he sat here and just drank them all at one of our events we had.
Probably
it
had
was just him and I
heartburn.
the night, and it was just like, yeah.
I don't think he's affected by anything.
Oh man, that's one of those guys.
Yeah,
He's a different breed.
definitely a different breed.
I have 3 sour beers and I need Pepto-Bismol like for the next 8 months.
I love sours.
Oh, I'm out. I'm out
I
of
love
the,
them.
out of the sour business.
Well, that's so
Half
interesting
halves.
too. Like, you know, in a microcosm, craft beers had its own evolution within itself.
Right.
Because you fast forward through all these beers being thrown at people all at one time, and which ones are they gravitating towards? Let me try that, but nothing's really. And I'm going to say this very tongue in cheek, but nothing's really kind of stuck versus the IPAs.
Well, and it's you'll have trends for years. One of the beers that we part of bringing to the state was Wells Banana Bread beer. And that beer was on a trajectory year over year, growth over growth.
Where is that from?
UK. So Wells was the name of the company. Now it's Eagle.
Are you English?
No.
You talk about UK a lot.
I spent, I won several contests to go there, plus I went there to on a sales seminar. So I did a lot of drinking there. I actually left the UK with acute pancreatitis. So I was drinking so much cask ale. It's awesome.
I kind of feel like he identifies as a
That's
a
fair.
Brit.
Between Norwegian and
Irish. My
Irish.
23andMe,
Yeah.
my 23andMe is dark blue and regular blue. That's it. I'm 50-50 down the line. My map is the smallest map you'll ever see on 23andMe.
Speaking of that, Irish are the best people to drink with.
Hell yeah, they are.
So are Norwegians. So
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, you know me. Sorry. Maybe it's just Irish.
Scotch, Irish. That's all I got.
No, that is a fair point. Though when you go over there, I mean, some of the most welcoming cultures over there in that whole region, Scotland, Ireland,
Yeah.
England. I mean, they just welcome you in and
Good
sort
sense of humor.
Oh, amazing sense of humor. And these guys, I mean, branching out from there, the Netherlands, Belgium, it's very similar from a drinking culture.
Right.
And I have some friends over in the Netherlands still, and you go over there on a Tuesday, and you'll be out drinking with them until 2 a.m. And the guy's like, "Oh, let's go back to my house and finish off the rest of the beer in my basement." And it's like 4 a.m. I gotta wake up for work in 2 hours, so I'll see you later.
It's also
I'm
not
like,
just like a random beer that they're pulling out of their fridge. It's like Cantillon, and it's just like these beautiful, different style beers that.
My family in Norway, when they go to the grocery store, beer is on the list of things to buy in correlation to bread and cheese.
I was about to say, please be
Do you know
cheese.
no, it's on the shop. For us, it's like that additional luxury, right? It's like, well, I've got the vegetables, I got this, I got that, and then I'll get beer. All right, we need butter, we need beer, we need cheese, we need bread, and it's right there, in the grocery aisle.
My
They
kind
say
of
shop
people.
on the perimeters. Beer's on the perimeters
That's
in
all I
Norway.
need.
No, it's true.
All I need: beer, cheese, and bread.
So we talk about craft beer and its growth of the past, in Florida at least, the past 15 years. What has that done to the consumer, I guess? And that's a very general question. I apologize for making that statement there, but, how has craft beer, I guess, evolved on the way from a sales aspect, or, how does that, because I know a lot of, we're with other AB wholesalers in the state, and AB's one of the most well-executing wholesalers around, and Southern Eagle Pro is at the top of that list, in my opinion. I'm not blowing smoke. That's the damn truth. And, trying to get people on board with craft beer is a thing, and it's not going away. It's
Right.
not a fad. And how did you guys get people on board with that at Southern Eagle?
I mean, if you look at your market share, craft in general, right? It's kind of hovered around that 6-7 share in Florida.
Yep.
I mean, because I think there was such a boom and such that almost romance behind craft, but then everybody and their brother was opening up a craft brewery. And I almost think it correlates with the tap handle share. I mean, bars used to have maybe 4 tap handles, and then all of a sudden you're seeing 50 tap handles, 60 tap handles. And I think the quality possibly might have gotten hurt a little bit, because that wave was 10 years, and now we're fighting to keep craft relevant. And I don't mean any disrespect to
No,
any
not at
craft
all. We see
brewers,
it.
because
we see it too.
Yeah.
Look, one thing I can say as far as our craft brewery partners, love them. I want them all to be very successful, but at the same time, kind of where
It's cutthroat.
and
It's cutthroat.
somewhat were you guys' own worst enemy to a degree, just because there was so much choice, so much and competition all at once.
Well, and lack of focus sometimes too. Trying to be everything to everybody. A lot of breweries have done,
Right.
and you can't do that. You have to pick your horse and ride it. I mean, bottom line, that's kind of what it boils down to.
Right. And then if you talk about the evolution of where things are at, I think for me, how do we make beer
Fun again?
exactly,
Yeah.
right? And you've got some serious headwinds. Think about this. Once RTDs were introduced, ready to drink cocktails and all that, it's starting to shift the taste palette of the next generation of drinkers, consumers, right? And so there's definitely some challenges for the entire beer industry.
That's an excellent point. I actually have not thought about was just and I guess I thought about not in that manner, the sugar content, and that's it's
the
sweetness.
lack of taste.
That's a very point
beer,
too. Yeah,
beer has got a very profound taste, And so I think once you start manipulating that, like, go back, and since my family's been in this industry for generations, my great-grandfather, after Prohibition, got up and gave a speech. And you have to think, during Prohibition, most people were drinking spirits, right? Mixed with soda of some sort, ginger ale or whatever.
Made in their bathtubs.
Right. True.
Yeah, for real.
True. Anheuser-Busch was actually the largest home brewery,
Yeah.
But either way, he said basically, I'll be damned if I change the taste of Budweiser, right? Profound statement when everybody was saying it needs to be sweeter. It needs to be sweeter because that's what the people want. I think in today's culture, RTDs, you take White Claw, you take Truly, you take Neutral. It has absolutely shifted the taste palette of this next generation of drinkers, and then you put on top of that with marijuana and these new THC drinks and everything else. I mean, we definitely have some challenges ahead of us as far as being relevant. I was telling you before the show, like, I was just over in Spain. It was so nice to see people at lunch, men and women, all ages, drinking beer, right? I pointed out to my wife, Shannon, I'm like, look at this. Like, how come the U.S. can't do this, right? Like, and it's not like, and I know, Emily, you get bloated when you drink beer. That's what you said.
Listen, it's got to just...
She's on her fourth light tackle.
Again, you pick and choose your battles, all right?
But if it was just the norm for a woman to have one beer, 2 beers at lunch, you're not going to get that.
Are you saying how do we destigmatize women being able to go out to lunch and be like, hey, yes, I'll have a beer. Not a glass of wine, not an Aperol Spritz, just hey, for my lunch with my girl lunch, with my Caesar salad and french fries, give me a fat beer. Like, that's not normalized in America to just be...
Speak to the french fries part again.
The french fries and a Caesar salad and a
That's
beer
the most
is
girl lunch of all time.
It is the best girl lunch. And girl dinner.
Girl lunch?
Girl lunch.
Yeah,
girl lunch. Okay.
No, because it's not going to dive into it, but I've had this conversation. It's the dumbest logic in the world.
It's not dumb
There's
logic.
like
it's a
zero
meal.
caloric intake there. Like,
Correct.
it's positive. So.
Right. And it's like 8, by the way, 9 dressings on the side.
Please tell me about the good food you're eating. Please, I want to know. Everybody.
Have you been to Taco Dive?
Is that directed to Brian?
That's an
like
I'm
she
an
was looking at
encyclopedia
her.
over here. Shit.
I'm looking at all y'all because that is, at least we got a little nutrition. We got a little greasy fucking french fries. And hell yeah, give me a fat beer. Like, I mean,
by the
girl
way,
lunch.
when Fat beer, that's my new
fat
favorite
beer,
thing.
yeah. Please
This
explain the fat
is
beer.
a fat beer.
It's a
No,
slang
that's a
term.
light
It's not
tackle.
about size. It's not about the ABV. It's a fat fucking beer. That's delicious, and I love it, and it's going to get my belly
All
right.
That's a T-shirt, by the way.
Fat beer.
Sailfish, the home of the fat beer.
Fat beer. I mean, I love it.
Maybe change the name to light tackle to fat beer.
It's not a bad idea.
Maybe
Honestly-
lager is fat beer, and light tackle's light tackle.
I like that idea a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
I mean,
Give me a
I
fat boy.
would buy it 100% if it were called fat beer.
No, Garrett, just enter the room.
Yeah.
Garrett Top.
Great Garrett Top.
Let me buy that 5th mic.
Garrett, get a fat beer.
Look at him with his shades on over there.
I guarantee
Pretty
you,
bright in here.
Yeah.
as soon as, if y'all want to appeal to women, all you got to say is have some girl lunch with a fat beer. Or to the LDA drinkers, period. They want
Right, so
something
that's
better.
your marketing campaign.
Marketing campaign. Literally, Caesar salad, some french fries, and a fat beer. Women, men, LDA drinkers,
Okay.
love it.
Okay, I just have to ask though, on the fat beer terminology,
Right.
are women going to gravitate towards
Well,
that?
do you want to call it a skinny beer? I don't. I automatically don't want it.
I don't know if you're the
telling
norm
me.
though.
Honestly,
That's a very fair statement.
I might as well be
It'd
a
be
boy.
very difficult to us to market to, hey, ladies, get a fat beer.
Because my mind automatically goes to like,
Skinny one, the skinny brand.
no, like it's going to make you fat.
I mean,
Yeah, but she brings up a good point, though, because we talk about the generations and how we market these different generations, right? And there's
Right.
a 21 to 29-year-old generation, and then there's everybody above that, which is kind of our age group for the most part. And I think that perspective she brings, it's a generation that kind of like goes against the norms, I guess, or like
Right.
fights
They're-
against it.
They're more promiscuous in their drinking. right? It goes across
But they
the
don't
board.
do
It's-
what they're like. They kind of do what their parents did almost sometimes.
Well, the thing
Also,
is,
don't
the
tell me
peop-
what to drink.
People of
you
our
know?
people of our generation grew up with red boxes, blue boxes, green boxes in the fridge. We started bringing home Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada, Anchor, right? So their kids saw those beers come into the fridge, and it's like, I'm not that. I'm the super sweet, sugary stuff. It's a direct opposite of full flavored, high ABV stuff. Most encouraging thing about what Philip said, in my opinion, is like the natural progression of your palate is from sweet to bitter. And the biggest
Yes.
feedback that we get from craft beer in general is it's too bitter for me. So when you're going from that huge residual sweetness of a high noon, I can't put any of those down. And then all of a sudden you get something with a light bitterness like a Sunrise City, that's where that transition happens. I think once they, truthfully for me, I was promiscuous in my drinking until I was like 30 something, and then I just stuck with a brand. And ultimately, again, I say it 1,000 times, ultimately our goal is for somebody to see that logo and just grab it because they know it's going to be good.
yeah, building the brand loyalty.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, but brand loyalty to that point used to be so prevalent, right? You only
Right.
had, what, 4 or 5, like, main players in the industry?
Yeah, you have 25, 30, 45. It's a lot
Right.
to choose from.
I mean,
Yeah.
and credit off to Jim Cook, right? From Sam Adams.
Facts.
Our best friend.
Yeah.
Love him.
Yeah, I
it
mean-
doesn't matter what's on tap. I'm like, Sam Seasonal, what is it? I know what it is. It doesn't matter. I
I
want to
thought
be.
you worked for Southern Eagle.
She did.
This is also the podcast version, Emily. So yeah,
This is 3 beers with
she
no
never
food in my
drinks Sam
belly.
Adams. So yes.
Any other competitors you want to
She's
talk
so
to
full
Philip
of shit right
about?
now.
Sorry.
What about High Noon? You want to bring that up?
Philip straight was like, "Are you gonna talk shit?" And I'm like, "Who would I be if I didn't?"
No,
you know,
it's kind of your gimmick. On Emily's podcast, we talk shit.
a little thunder, a little lightning. What do you want?
I do have
We
one,
want a fat beer.
Exactly.
one Jim Cook story,
Okay.
right? I had the privilege of meeting him one time at a meeting. Went up to him, he's in his Canadian tuxedo, right?
Yep.
And walk up to him, I'm like, hey, big fan, Philip Busch, introduce myself. I'm a distributor down in Florida. Just want to let you know, love you. He goes, wait, Busch? He goes, your uncle tried to put me out of business at least 25 times. I'm like, yeah, he's cutthroat, you know, like all about it. And he goes, well, I appreciate you coming up and saying that. I didn't think you would. 10 minutes later, I have to go to an Anheuser-Busch meeting. I come walking out of the meeting. Jim snuck in the meeting just to listen. I come walking out. I'm with like a entourage of AB distributors, and Jim Cook comes up. He's like, the nicest Busch I've ever met. And I'm like, and they're like, wait, how in the hell do you know Jim Cook? I'm like, oh boy, like
That can be taken so many different ways. By the way, nicest Busch.
Dave
he's ever
and I
met.
have a Jim Cook story too. It's not nearly as cool. We're at the Craft Beer Summit January of 23, and we're at the luncheon element, and we're like just reciting everything with the more empowered, like all the Bump Williams stuff, and like just regurgitating stuff. And all of a sudden, walks to our table, sits down. It's the man. It's Elvis, Craft Beer Elvis, and he sits down and
Craft Beer
I tighten up. I tighten up a little bit. I sort of go, Dave. Oh my God, it's Jim Cook. Dave looks. He buttons up too, and he goes, guys, how you doing? Jim Cook.
I'm going to shake your hand.
Sam, he goes, Sam Adams. And Dave goes, man, we know who you are.
No, honestly, just great guy, just conversation wise, and it's one of those moments it burned in my mind because Brian and I are sitting at this round table, the breakers, talking to him, great conversation, and we had a previous employee come up to me. He's like, Dave, I don't need to talk to you. Can it wait like 5 minutes, dude? I had a conversation with Jim Cook. I need to talk to you now.
We're talking TPR schedules with Jim Cook.
That's why we go outside. It's just like,
Not now. Please, get away from me.
and we burned into my mind forever. Is just interrupting that conversation.
But speaking
and
of
then it
like
was Audi 5000.
I know.
just Jim Cook and the industry, let's talk about Miss Rhonda.
No.
Heart,
Oh, boy.
soul, love her. Oh boy, sir, tell me more about your old boy.
No, there's actually a story I can't tell there, but I met her before just to say.
I'm sure you have, Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met her when she started Lost Harbor.
No,
Trying to give some Philip some cover
Boston
here. So yeah.
Harbor Distillery. Yeah.
Boston Harbor, she's an angel.
Boston
I
Harbor,
love
yeah.
her.
She's the
I
greatest.
love her product, and I love that she did what she did.
She's. I mean, as far as women pioneers,
That's,
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's
definitely.
it.
Sure.
I mean
Especially
that
in a,
sums it up, right?
in a male-dominated industry, to come in as a woman and just be like, no, this is...
That was a full circle moment for me because there was a movie that was released in 2008, and only like 10 theaters in the country called Beer Wars.
Yeah.
And she was a major proponent of that. And you saw
Hey,
like
Brian, how'd that make my family look?
not very good. I hated that movie.
I appreciate you bringing that up right now.
Well, I'm just talking about a snippet of it where she did really great things, and you saw how difficult it was to sell beer.
She did great.
She did.
You know
She
how hard
did.
it is
She
to be
did
a
fine in that
woman
movie.
in this industry.
The
and
rest of
she
that movie
did.
sucked.
Yeah, she was trying to sell like a coffee beer.
Yes,
Yeah,
Moonshot. Yeah. And then
That's all I remember
I
that
actually
movie.
got to meet her in 2021. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
We text all the
But
time.
I do think like women's version, male version.
Didn't even think of that.
I think both Jim Cook and Rhonda, their passion behind the beer, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's what the industry needs, absolutely. And
So it
I'm
makes
not
you a follower.
right. I'm not
Yeah.
taking away from anything from anybody else, but certainly, like Jim, I thought, in my opinion, he was extremely passionate about craft. I think he gave a lot of craft breweries the segue to start up.
Sure.
I mean, his
No,
whole plan as far
He
as
pioneered the way for
Right,
sure.
yeah.
And Brian and I were talking about this morning too, just about the industry in general, or craft beer industry, and it's going through a phase right now in a cycle where it's do you retreat or do you keep fighting?
got to
Right.
keep fighting.
And it's no
Progression.
question we're going to keep fighting, but it's
Right.
it's tough. I mean,
Right.
and you're going to see a lot, I think, of people retreating here pretty soon,
Yeah.
honestly, into next year. And you have to keep fighting through it. And I think coming out of it, the whatever we get to the next 2 to 3 years is going to be really interesting to see what that looks like.
I think like a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it too, holding on to what it used to be. Mm-hmm.
Evolve.
It used to be the Wild West. It used to be you can go out there and you had a book of like 800 beers, and you placed one of them. It was, let's celebrate. And now it's not that. You have
yeah,
to.
but go beyond a generation of
Right.
that. I mean, you had like 4 or 5,
Right.
right?
Correct.
And now it exploded. Probably come back together a little bit.
it has to
and
retract.
that's what the thing. We're going back to how things like were, which.
But I honestly
yeah.
think, though, ultimately, the beer industry has to make themselves inviting, not just to women, but to the next generation
Yes.
of drinkers.
That's
And
exactly
how do you do it?
right.
We were just
100%.
talking, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it through glassware? Is it through, like, just how do we come together? And I'm the distributor, but at the same time, like, the industry is everything to me.
Right.
Well, it's a good point too, because I think a lot of people look back and wait to respond to it. It's our job to take action and control
Right.
the direction of it in a very
Right.
positive way that
Right.
benefits everybody. Beer in general. I mean, that's the bottom line. I've gotten my soapbox this year about kind of getting away from the craft beer moniker and just saying we're local beer. That's all we are. It's all beer.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're just a different beer made by a different company. That's all it is.
You also
But we're
hate being
local.
in a box.
I know,
And
hate being in a
craft
box.
makes you
Yeah.
feel like you're
Yeah.
in a box
Yeah.
instead of just being beer.
Nobody puts Davey in a corner.
Davey.
He will lash
Davey,
out.
baby. Davey.
When you
I
call
was-
me Davey, yes.
Sure.
You guys got a weird thing going on here.
It's the best.
We have a good time.
But
Always.
I would say, as far as a beer thing, like Paul was texting me when I was over in Spain. He's like, "What kind of beers are you drinking?" And I'm like, "I'm just ordering a cerveza." Didn't know the names, didn't know anything, but it was depending on the cafe or the restaurant you were at. It was basically the beer that they served, and they brought it out in the glassware of the brand, and it.
And the style too, I'd
The
imagine.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it just looked inviting. You walk through the streets, little cafes on each side, men, women drinking it. Like, how does the U.S. kind of somehow pull some of that into our culture, right?
Well, so much of it aged too. So I mean, I've always looked to Europe to like where's the next step
Right.
of beer, right? And we're still such a young country as compared to these other countries in Europe that have been around for much longer than we have. They've been through the phases we've been through. Maybe not the same comparison, but they've been through the phases. Where they're at the point now they're starting to settle off a little bit,
Right.
and this is the culture they are. And I hope we get to that point one day where beer is romanticized in a manner of delivered that way and not as
Yeah. It's funny you say that because, while we were talking about this, I always felt like, and certainly like Germany's beer culture is very similar to what we have going on. Everything there is regional. Like in this region, it's Kronbacher. This region, it's Spaten. When they're having Oktoberfest celebrations in Munich, it's only the 2 breweries in Munich that they're serving at that Oktoberfest. If you go towards like the military bases, it's Bitburger. And you're kind of seeing that in Florida. Like, you would look like, if you want to put Florida in a map, Treasure Coast is Sailfish. Tampa is Cigar City. It's you go Tallahassee, it's Proof. It's all kind of regioned out.
Well, and also looking at it from Europe's perspective too, I look at how we try to distribute beer in Puerto Rico.
Right.
And it was almost like Puerto Rico was this, I don't mean this in a negative way, but a dumping ground. Like all the beer was sent there because it's just like, let's try it out.
Right.
They'll take it, let's send them this. And I still feel like most of, even North and South America is kind of treated that way. If you go to Costa Rica, certain spots where it's changed in that manner where they're accepting everything now.
Right.
And is diluting it. And that's essentially what we're talking about, is diluting the ability to differentiate yourself and actually delivered a better experience.
I feel like it goes.
But did craft kind of do that? Not to cut you off,
No,
Emily.
you're
I'm
No,
sorry.
that's a solid point, though. I think it
Too many brands try to be statewide or nationwide.
or be everything to everybody, too.
Right. And I remember being with a smaller brewery, and he's like, we're going to go to Georgia one day. I go, why?
Exactly.
Why are we going to go to
Right.
Georgia? Like, why can't we just own our backyard and be happy with that?
But I think that's why you're seeing it very difficult for craft breweries to be relevant outside their 50 miles from
Yeah.
their brewery.
Focus on your
right?
hometown. And we had that revelation a couple years ago just to really pull back and just focus on our backyard. And there was a period of time where we went and had reps in Jacksonville and Tampa, and that made no sense looking back on it. But at the time, it made sense.
Right.
But learning from that and realizing
Because
the fact,
everybody thought they were going to be a national Sierra
exactly.
Nevada and Sam's. And
your wholesalers are telling you to do this, do that, and
Right.
you're listening to them as a very uneducated craft brewery sometimes.
Right.
And you have to go through those experiences to learn and what makes the most sense. And I think there are breweries that are learning, and there's a lot out there that still aren't learning. And they think it's get my beer to the wholesaler, let them sell it. Like, guys, that's not the way to be successful.
When smaller breweries call and ask for advice, and they go, well, we're thinking about opening up in South Carolina, North Carolina. I'm like, where are you guys based out of? Oh, we're in dude, stay where you are. Build your brand there. Get the feedback from the people
consumer
that you can
mentality.
touch.
People always ask us, when you guys going? Are you just in Florida?
Right.
Yeah, and we have a lot of ground to cover here for a
Right.
long period of time. For us to get all of Florida may never happen, and that's okay. We're actually very okay just being like in our backyard, a little bit north of us, a little bit south of us.
And the
What's
thing
wrong
is,
with that?
it's
Right.
so different everywhere you go. Jacksonville, I'll never forget, this was
But
such...
not to cut you off, Brandon,
good.
but to your point, though, not a lot of... I think most breweries that started had this grandiose idea that they were going to sell, like, who was it, Ballast Point?
Oh, they set
for
on
$1
brilliant.
billion to Constellation, like, and then you had this, like, I'm going to be something.
We're gonna do that, too.
Way more,
Yeah.
and then because of the saturation, it just became
Well, it became a
unfeasible.
very large place for private equity to park money and
Sure.
Ballast Point sold for $1 billion. Okay, we're going to make money off this deal. It's like,
And-
guys,
and-
there's a lot of work.
Like putting a multiple to that. It's like there was no multiple. It was just like, I'm going to give you an ungodly amount of money, and it totally flopped.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling out Constellation because I partner with them, but
But that wasn't Constellation, that was Ballast Point, because as soon as that happened, they gave up on all the things that made them Ballast Point. They started treating every single
And
beer
there's
with
other brands that have done that have done the same
Correct,
exact
and-
thing, that just lose who they are in that sellout.
I remember they were like the number one selling beer at Wegmans, which is the biggest grocery store in the Northeast, and now you can't even find it anywhere.
I'm going to say
Other
it for
than the- yeah.
everybody.
well,
Funky
I don't even
Buddha
think
was
it's
a great
being
damn example.
made anymore.
Oh no, they have 3 of their pubs. They sold it from Constellation to another group, and now they're just running their 3 pubs, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Crazy.
But I mean, like, yeah, again, back to Funky Booty on the same thing. Like, I mean, I think when I moved down here 10 years ago, I was so in my, coming from West Virginia and then coming to Florida, I'm like, beer everywhere, so excited and getting everything. And of course, Funky Booty was on my list, and I was going down there all the time. I was at Due South, I was at Nobo, I was at all the places there. And the thing that made it so unique and so craft was it was done right there. And then as soon as it blew up and it sold, it was a beautiful 5-year investment, by the way. And then once it sold, that quality, that appeal, everything just changed for it. And now, thankfully, they brought it back. But
Right.
just meaning it does definitely change your opinion of the brand, of the beer, et cetera, et cetera. Not to say that buyout ruins a brand by any means,
Right.
but it definitely takes away from your perception of what you're drinking, what you're choosing at the bar at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think for all the craft breweries that you guys know that have been bought out by bigger, beer industry, there's not too many that are still very successful,
right.
right?
Right.
And so I think,
Another celebrity just walked in.
yeah.
Oh, nepotism.
Oh, hey.
Nepotism right there.
Mr.
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Shout Shout out Ryan Pisco.
Where's John Lundy? Where's John Lundy?
So, everyone, Philip, this question's for you. Everyone has always been, certainly this year, doom and gloom on beer. Every publication, beer is flat or negative trending. Or do you see it bouncing back?
Look, I mean, I think part of the conversation today is about how do we as an industry come together and really romanticize whatever we have
Make
to
it fun
do.
again.
Make it fun.
Yeah.
And I'm sure over the next few years, things are going to change, right? Mm-hmm. You got legalization, Amendment 3 on the bill for Florida. So, I mean, what does marijuana do to the beer industry, right?
That's my big thing. They're coming.
I think that it's definitely probably going to happen. Mm-hmm. What's that do? The next generation. And certainly I'm not trying to call myself out, but in high school, went to Grove parties, went keg parties, and
Doesn't happen anymore.
doesn't happen.
No.
The Gen Zs aren't drinking. I have two younger sisters, and they're drinking, but it's like
Not
my
anything-
sister's at
not
W
anything
right
you
now.
want. Yeah.
Right. She's at W right now, and she's like so just normal out there going to school and going to class on time. And I'm like, are you having a good time? Are you okay? Are you having fun?
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
I mean, to your question though, and not that I'm. Let me rephrase, because I definitely don't want to come across like promoting underage drinking. We try to do everything we can to promote responsible drinking, but like 21 to 25, they're not drinking as much alcohol in general. Why do you think athletic brewing has become so successful, right?
Very true.
Like, maybe there's still a desire to have that beer taste without the alcohol. The hemp industry, right? Mm-hmm. They've got these drinks coming out. It's the better for you buzz slogan, right? So how do there's a fine line, a balance of promoting responsible drinking, but also appreciating beer and what it takes to create a beer. I mean, beer is one of the oldest beverages in the world.
Right.
In fact, I think it might be the oldest, if I'm not mistaken.
Oldest fermented beverage.
Yeah. So I don't think beer ever goes away, obviously, but I do think that appreciating it in a responsible way and romanticizing it, I think it's key to our future, honestly.
It's a solid point, because we have to change somewhat of the perception of it.
I love the glassware idea, by the way, because it's the same way when like you go and order, and like I've said this forever with us, I was like, we got to start treating ourselves in that elevated manner of what spirits are doing, like constantly elevating, right? Like beyond the beer mats, beyond, it goes down the glassware. Like if you're ordering an espresso martini, it's coming in a martini glass.
Right.
If you're ordering old fashioned, it's coming in a low ball, right? Like just all those different styles of glassware that appeals to the elegance of the cocktail that you're drinking. Kind of the same thing, like that style of beer that we're drinking. Does it always have to be served in a pint glass? And
But I also look at like the 90s when beer was really fun. I mean, there wasn't a commercial on TV where a train wasn't coming in, and there were girls in bikinis, and they were all pounding beers, and, frogs
People are
singing
too
and dancing.
sensitive
Yeah, but I mean,
People are too sensitive.
The U.S. culture's changed, and we're not going to get into politics today.
No, but still, but it just...
We did the last podcast. It's fine.
Yeah. Edit.
Shout out Mike Holiday. No, but to that end, like things like that were fun, like the "I Love You, Man" commercials. Those were some of like
there was
the greatest
some
things.
really creative genius, back
like the
then
Marlboro guy.
to make it appealing. Now, to your point, Emily, I honestly think you're spot on.
Right.
I think the
Which
spirits
point,
industry
Philip?
has done a phenomenal job. You look at most menus and everything else around for the bars and restaurants, their pictures are sexy.
Yeah.
Their presentation is
100%.
sexy,
Yeah.
right? Beer is
Sex
portrayed.
sells. Cheers.
Beer,
Cheers to Girl Lunch and Fat Beers.
beer is somewhat portrayed as like white male, over 40, fat, unmotivated, and
Pretty much everything
and
you're not
sometimes-
supposed to be anymore.
And I think
America.
sometimes it's portrayed as cheap. That's
Yeah.
that
sure.
like that to me is like,
And that's what deters
because it's not that.
You know, I hate talking about the LDA all the time, like the lower drinking age all the time, and like them being the people who are shaping how people are drinking, because it almost feels like you're forgetting about the people who pioneered beer and who have been drinking beer forever. Like my dad, like all those people. My dad has been, oh my God, you don't go to my house. Since I was a kid, there's always Bud Light in the fridge. Always. Point blank, even through all the Bud Light drama, Bud Light, period, point blank. And that is West Virginia, Southern West Virginia, and he is still just like, that's my fucking beer.
It's a rite of
call,
passage,
we,
West
we
Virginia.
call it COVID Bud Light now. We were the only ones that experienced it.
I was trying to think of something witty to say. I'm
Crazy
just kind of like,
sound.
that's honestly amazing.
Listen, I brought up the movie
Argue
Beer
it.
Wars, okay? Totally didn't even think about it.
No, but going back to the spirits thing for a minute, you have to understand too. Spirits haven't taken a true price increase in over a decade.
Spirits.
Beer, on the other hand, has
Yeah.
taken a price increase, and now you can go into ABC, Total Wine, any liquor store, and a case of beer, domestic beer, is pretty much
Yeah.
parity of a handle of Tito's.
Yeah.
And so for the next generation, if they are going to drink, price comparison,
For sure.
yeah, I
The
mean,
best gift that I can get my sister is a handle of Tito's. Like, I mean, just,
Right.
or a, not gonna lie, like a rack of
Well, I think the
Twisted
point, though,
Teas.
is just the price
Yeah, that's
comparison of it
horrible.
all. It's just
It
like,
is.
you know, and I've had people say to me numerous times recently that it's cheaper to go buy a handle of something versus it is buying beer.
Last
Yeah.
you longer.
But
Yeah.
I honestly think that big beer looked at what craft was getting price point wise, and they said we need to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And so going back to like now this next generation of drinkers, because we are through a generation of drinkers from when craft really boomed
Yeah.
to now. And the fact is that the price point, absolutely.
Oh my God, you're.
Oh, it's
I was
substantial.
literally like beer angel.
And I'm
Beer
not sure the
Angel.
percentage, but it's gone up at least 30%.
For
if
sure.
not more.
In-
We
in
are
a
that
de-
gener-
in a decade?
But we are that generation, though. We're the ones that experienced craft beer early 30s, and now
Sure.
we're 40s, and we're the ones at the tail end of this.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, there's
I just think you can't forget about everybody else, you know, and the people
What do you mean?
Meaning, like, we're all so focused on the next generation. The next generation, of course, you cannot skip over that. You cannot forget them. But, like, what the hell is everybody else drinking? Like, what are the millennials drinking? What are the boomers drinking? What is everybody else drinking? And it is, like, again, my dad's a perfect example. Like, that demographic is, you really can't change those guys.
Yeah, but you have to think the baby boomers aren't drinking as much. Wine supposedly.
Depends where you're at.
For me, I think we have to get back to telling stories with beer.
Oh, wait.
Go for it.
Let me just throw this out there, too.
Go
'cause
for it.
I'm sure you read BBD. Mm-hmm. The fact that there's, written testimonies out there from the health side as far as alcohol on your health,
Yeah.
where it wasn't like that. A couple beers a day or a couple beers a week were healthy for you. Now they're starting to come out with cancer reports. So how does that influence?
Right.
That's big
The
tobacco, in my opinion, and big THC, whatever you want to call it, and all those.
I mean, I think marijuana is probably more impactful than tobacco in the U.S. right now.
Right now.
for
yeah.
sure, agreed.
You're
I
saying
mean,
from
I
like
say
a lobbyist standpoint?
Yeah.
from a lobbyist
Because
standpoint, meaning like
it boils down to your
Yeah.
hobbies.
it all comes down to how scary you can make it, pretty much. What's that one dude with that one movie? And he was like the cigarette guy. Love the shit.
Could you be any more vague?
The
No, we watched
cigarette
it.
guy?
He was advocating for cigarettes. That was his whole job in this movie.
Oh, thank you for smoking.
Yes,
Okay.
that guy.
Wasn't a documentary.
I didn't say documentary.
I thought you did. The documentary about the cigarette guy is what you said.
Well, it's a movie. Whatever.
Right.
It's a
All right, let's
film.
get to-
No, but I think it's about winning the minds and hearts of people, and going back to like an old school way of thinking is storytelling. It's like, what's the story of this? Why are people invested? Yes, it's a great beer, right? A lot
Solid
of people
point,
make
yeah.
great beer. What is the real story? Like, story of the Treasure Coast, story of this, story of that. How we got there. What do we do with our grain? There's so many different stories in beer that connecting to that heart and mind of that consumer. I got you.
Yeah,
just
I
the
was gonna push that in
nostalgia.
front of you.
Again, going back to like, I will always be a Bud Light girl just because I grew up with Bud Light in my fridge, like always.
Right.
And not my fridge, my father and mother's fridge. Like that was
And
always
that
in there.
in itself is also a story.
I mean, I buy Tide Pods because that's what my mom always
And
uses.
that's what
I
your
know.
sisters eat.
Crest too.
At West Virginia.
Exactly. Like, it trickles down.
I heard Tide Pods. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just saying.
that's where we draw the line?
I'm just saying that brand loyalty.
No, to your point though, it's
stands
not
through.
forgetting about a demographic to focus on another demographic.
Right,
It's trying
right.
to appease everybody, and that's, I think, goes back to the biggest challenges and the fact that we're in such a trendy time where there's always new things coming out.
Right.
How do we appeal to everybody? And the realize you can't, and that's the honest thing you have to admit to yourself. Like pick your demographic and focus on it. And I know it's a tough thing, and to me that's the wrong thing to say in regards to that, but it's hard to appeal to everybody. And there's a reason that not a lot of people spend time focused on that 21 and 29-year-old because they're still in the decision-making mode for the most part. So
That
let's
wasn't too
focus
far
about-
away from me, That was
What's
only
that?
like a couple, 29.
No, but I'm just saying from like a marketing perspective, it's hard to market to that group because they don't have any opinions formed yet.
Yeah, but I think to Emily's point, like her affiliation with Bud Light, their campaigns used to be incredible. Bud,
Yeah. It's a
and
nostalgia.
and I think some of that brand loyalty was created through marketing. And
Right.
like
100%.
I absolutely identify with this brand.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why last year with the Bud Light thing, it was a tough blow to a lot of consumers, And look, I mean, I love Bud Light. I still have so much appreciation for Anheuser-Busch. It was absolutely brutal what we went through last year, right? But at the end of the day, like, I think what I took away from it, minus like my people being ridiculed, was so many consumers were let down by the brand that they
We're loyal to.
Right.
Right. That they knew that they have been drinking. I mean, that was definitely a discussion that
You're talking dads, granddads, great-granddads.
Right. And I mean,
Well, no,
there was one time.
Bud Light had only been around. My uncle, August the 3rd, probably one of the best beer met. Like, if you had a chance to sit down, he's 87 years old.
Right.
If you had a chance to sit down with him and have a beer, it is sitting in front of a living legend, right? And to this day, he still, at 87, signs off on the taste of all
Is he
of
the one
it.
at Juno?
That was his son, Steven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, but
still, like,
Yeah.
right, like that genuine palate, that, yes,
Right.
like brand loyalty,
And
period.
under his leadership, that's where the marketing came from.
Right.
And so all those people, it was a 1982 brand.
Right.
So if you're 40, you grew up with your...
It's a fair
you know,
point, yeah.
Right. And so it was a big letdown. Absolutely. But I think, not to get on an AB kick, but hey, they're doing everything they can to get it back. If it works, great. But I also feel like it was it was sad to see so many consumers just say, wow,
And
I
quickly,
think what
too.
was interesting about all that was, too, though, that like those people weren't just going to another domestic because they were so loyal to Bud Light. Of course, simply, absolutely not. A Miller, no, absolutely not. Like, you obviously align.
You should have said ew to Miller.
I said ooh to all of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was, ooh to,
Miller
I'm
Light.
saying
Those-
ooh to
that's
all
like
of them.
fighting
First off,
words,
it's a Pilsner, and it's
Like, I just
terrible,
mean,
so,
like,
yeah.
Miller Light's
No,
got to be the worst.
But you
Am I
didn't-
allowed to say that on this show?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Clearly, we're all saying whatever we want today.
You didn't
so.
you didn't see the other guys pick up where Bud Light left off either, and that was the most remarkable
Right.
thing for me. Like,
They were going to imports.
Like,
Modelo.
if we find a craft brand is sinking or has minimal public appeal, that's when we go to war and we start picking up that tap share, that shelf space. That really didn't happen.
No, because that domestic drinker is not ready. That my dad's, they're
Right.
not ready for craft, and then that's why they went to Modelo.
Right.
They went to Heineken, and Heineken's a massive stretch, but I just mean they weren't going to another domestic such as Miller's Core or
Right.
whatever. They were straight up like, no, we're going beyond that, and
right.
just that loyalty.
But
It
I
hurt.
mean,
It hurt.
I do think, yeah, absolutely hurt, no doubt. But I do think that's a great thing about the industry, right? The beer industry.
Yeah.
That you do, you have brand loyalty, but you also have options.
Right.
In reality,
Fair.
from any industry, like, no matter what you're doing, craft, domestic, imports, like, people have options in the U.S. It's just how does that industry come together
Right.
and make it attractive to the next generation, to the, I don't know how you phrase that as far as like this generation and then the baby boomers.
I mean, I'm a millennial. Philip.
Well,
I feel like you're looking to put me in a box.
It's a way to-
LDA is the word of the day. Lower drinking age.
Well, it's a way to connect
Just
it all, and,
yeah.
and to the point earlier, it's hard to hit every demographic with it because the guys of that older baby boomer generation may not appeal to that at all. But the guys
and plus, baby boomers were probably the biggest beer consumption generation,
yeah.
Yeah.
and now they're 60 plus, and they're just not drinking as much.
I don't know. You had to come to Beer Olympics here
Yeah.
at the end
Oh
of
my God.
July. There was a drinking team of 60 and 70-year-olds, and their anchor was an 80-year-old guy who had been practicing all week.
He's my best friend.
But I
Yeah.
think to that point, though, too, it's understanding the areas you're in. Every area is different,
Right.
And it's not even just Treasure Coast. Every county is different.
Right.
Subsects of every county, like Palm Beach County, for example, is literally 5 demographics.
It's
in
8
itself.
states. Yeah.
How do you market differently to those different areas? Not everything's the same, and it goes back to like spending your time where it makes the most sense, and understanding that area that you're actually trying to focus on selling. And every area.
Having a pulse on the market.
Yeah, for
like,
sure,
and
yeah.
I see this all the time. Like, Florida should be broken up into like 5-6 different states because I've sold all over this damn state, and between all of them, they are all so different. Your selling technique is different. What they're drinking is so different. How the consumer reacts to everything, like every account that you go into wants something specific based on their consumer.
The biggest eye-opening for me was going to Jacksonville for the first time, thinking I've got a local beer. It's Florida. We're X, we're Y, we're Z. You go in there, and they go, you're not the local beer. You're Florida beer. Intuition's local. Bold City's local.
You don't mean
Arby's
shit.
is local.
Shout out to Brian of Bold City.
Yeah.
and to that point, as from a distributor's perspective, like Brian and I hit it off.
Right.
Great guy, right?
Yeah, those good guys up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would try like crazy to sell
Brandon.
his brands here. And I wish I was successful. To the point earlier, like, you lose that relevancy. And then from the cost perspective of like, what's it take to get from Jacksonville to the Treasure Coast and selling 5 accounts? It just...
Juice is not worth the squeeze at that point.
You have to own your market, and that's it. And that's your backyard.
And the time it takes to do that. I mean, we didn't get to where we're at overnight, and Hooch attested to the help with Southern Eagle to get us to where we're at. And prior to Southern Eagle acquiring Brown, growing us in Palm Beach County, that took time. I mean, that wasn't a flash in the pan overnight thing that happened. It takes time to build those relationships, going back to relationships, and just establishing yourself as an actual like presence.
I mean, a good example of that is like I met you down at Key West Beer Fest like 5-6 years ago, and I'd never heard or had a Sailfish before, and I was with Team Due South as.
I wasn't there.
No, I
Were
mean,
you part of
I mean,
that team?
In the very beginning, I was, yes.
I followed his footsteps.
Is that when you came from London over?
No, I worked for Bellicus, who was the...
He goes,
no, we took Due South to London. No, I worked for a pretty big importer based out of... through C.R. Goodman. C.R. Goodman owned that importer, and I was the Southeast manager for that for a while.
Gotcha.
And then I took Due South to London and was there for a month now.
And then he went on to better things, and then I followed in Tonnison's footsteps, and here we are following each other from Florida Craft to Sailfish, but
It's, again, like being in the same gulag.
it's a gulag.
Yeah.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Well, I do like the conversation about joining together and us all making an impact
Right.
to drive not just craft beer in general in the right direction.
Right.
And how do we set ourselves up for success for the next 10 to 20 years and beyond? How does this remain a focal point and not get distracted by so many trends out there? And we've been through some trends, especially COVID kicked off the trends to an accelerated state of like, what do you do next? And if you follow those around, it's a losing battle. And I think a lot of brands try to do that. And staying true to who you are, adapting, to Brian's point, the story, the brand building, developing a relationship with your wholesaler, and going to market to build relationships to establish longevity.
Yeah.
And understanding that you can only focus on certain areas and not trying to be everywhere and really be effective. You're diluting your own brand at that point trying to do that.
Relevancy.
And a good point in that is like you take a look at Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada, Dogfish, and like while they've all had their own things or whatever, but like they have definitely stuck true to the true to style beers that they've always been doing.
Well, no,
like,
they've been a part of their own ethos. I mean, Dogfish
Right.
that still does like their culinary aspect of things.
right. It's very
At
that's
the-
it. It's very
at the root of-
exploratory.
Yeah,
Yep.
but they've also been.
Sorry.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Come on. No. But think about it. Sam's has how many different?
Well, they went
Truly?
from 8. Well, no,
Well,
he keeps
absolutely.
getting grandfathered
But that's
into the
like,
Brewers
yeah,
Association. Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's truly
I mean,
is,
maybe
yeah.
he's grandfathered in, but he's
Yeah.
also been, I think, part of.
Grandfather, he grandfathered himself
Exploratory.
in.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm
it's
just saying from
well,
the-
now you can
how
own
many
5
people-
companies.
But
Right.
how many people now today know that Sam Adams and Truly are the same? Like,
Well, because they're
that's
because they're
the
a public
LDA
traded
does-
because they're a public traded
Yep.
company. Everything says the Boston Beer Company on all their shit.
sure, but how many people know that Sam Adams is the Boston
general
Beer
consumer,
Company?
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They
doesn't
don't know,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is like your consumer is beautiful and lovely, but the consumer does not know. We talk about that I think every podcast that like there's so much the consumer does not know, and then you almost have to treat it in a way of like it's that Truly was such a new brand to the market, but in same with Hard Mountain Dew or whatever the hell, everything that's coming out, it's just like these brands have arms outside of them, if you will.
No, I mean, I think it's hedging your bet, right?
Yeah.
And if beer's in a decline for whatever reasons, you know, I was recently interviewed by a local newspaper about the 3-tier system, and it's archaic, right? Tough conversation, but it's almost like
Archaic?
okay, archaic, yeah.
Okay, just continue.
And not to get in the 3-tier conversation completely, even though if you want to, we can. But no, I mean,
Good
it's
topic.
one of those things that, you know.
It goes back to people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And it's like a dog chasing a car. If they caught the car, what do they do with it?
And every brewery, every craft brewery or every brewery, get away from the word craft, right? Every brewery might not be happy with their distributor, might not execute at the level that they want or think that their brand should be elevated to, right? I think that's reality. But at the end of the day, like, instead of this inward fighting in the industry, you know, like what we've kind of essentially talked about today is like, how do we elevate the industry versus like, well, the 3-tier system sucks. And
Well, a lot of it's accountability too, on the supplier side, and owning the fact that it's your job to be successful,
Right.
And identify where you can be successful at. And we've done the same thing over the years of which partners can we be more successful at. Let's focus on those and not focus on the ones we can't be successful at.
Right.
Not our faults. It's just we don't align the best way. We are what we're in, and that's okay.
But I think naturally, like, you're a business owner, right?
Mhm.
You think that your business, your brands are the best and they should be everywhere. If you're out of touch maybe with reality of like how you're going to get there and you just assume that it's going to happen.
You have beer. Why isn't it everywhere?
Yeah,
Right.
That's
I think
Right.
that goes back to owning that it's up to us at the end of the day. Like no matter what,
Well,
if
take
you want your beer-
responsibility
yeah,
as a
and
supplier.
the thing that so many suppliers get, I feel like stuck up on, and that's just seeing for working for so many over the years and seeing the guts of so many suppliers. It's just like, all right, here's our brand. Here you go, wholesaler, and they just expect that to be it. And at the end of the day, no, it's your brand, it's your responsibility, and where you want it to be, and who you want to be drinking it, and
Yeah, but to the point of it
It's like
is
you're ready
the
coming
realization, and responsibility, fall back on how do we all be successful and
Right.
change this in a manner that's positive.
Right.
No, it's working within the game.
Yeah.
Play the game. You know what I mean? That's realistically what you have to do. It's not. You can't blame your wholesaler if things aren't going right for you.
absolutely.
You just can't.
Don't understand, like, well, and I'll go out on a limb here, and people may get mad when I say this, but like, if the 3-tier system went away,
Right.
we're not going to go hire a bunch of trucks and drivers and all this kind of stuff to go deliver. I mean,
Correct.
That mechanism is not a sustainable mechanism.
Try
We have
logistics.
partners in
Let me
place
just try it.
Let me
that
just say
have
it
a logistics
works.
company
Right.
that works. We're going to partner with them because that's how it makes sense for all of us to grow with what we're doing and be successful. And
Right. But you bring up a good point, right? You have a realistic expectation and mindset, right? millions of dollars are invested on the distributor side with the infrastructure of a warehouse and people and trucks and insurance and taxes and everything else, right? That basically we're accountable for. So, I mean, your expectation, why we partner so well together, is because you're realistic.
I mean, how many merchandisers do you guys employ? I mean, that grocery
That
component
alone, yeah.
for X amount of. How many,
And do you think Publix is going to want to deal with 350
Well, no.
breweries, right?
it's going to be we're going to create a bigger problem. I'm not saying a problem exists right now, but we're going to create a fucking problem,
Right.
if that ever to happen.
I mean, I just want to say, like, I've worked for a supplier that was self-distributed, and it was more and more challenging than working for a startup distributor by working with just a distributor, by working with just the supplier side, working for you can't even call them a supplier, but somebody that is just aligned with themselves.
But I look at the breweries that are making like 10 barrels a year. Do you really want to pick up from them if you're a big wholesaler or even a
No,
small
that's the
wholesaler?
point.
You don't. And
neither do
the thing is,
accounts.
they only want to be in 5 places anyway. Like that to me is where it makes sense.
Okay, and to that point, okay, if you're a 10-barrel system,
Right.
I mean, should there be some better language possibly for that?
I think so, because it's a waste of your time to go pick them up. It's a
But
waste,
to the point of like our relationship with Sailfish, you're our number one craft
and
supplier.
Say it one more time, Philip.
No, but it goes back to the growth, though. If we're going to stay right
Close,
there,
close to number one.
like if
number one-ish.
No, you don't do anything in this line of work unless you have a great relationship with your wholesale partner.
But
It's
I
what-
do
yeah.
I do appreciate your point though. Like if your expectations is, and I'll give you a perfect example. Dwayne at Side Door, great guy.
Yeah.
I met him years ago. His expectations and aspirations were like, hey, I just want to provide good beer to like local friends
Yeah.
and everything. He's not looking to get into mass distribution. Like if he wanted to go out and sell that himself, but he also finds value, I think, in us because we'll go pick it up and help him.
Right.
You know, whatever he wants to do.
And expose opportunities
managing
to-
the cooperage, the logistics, like that stuff right there is really difficult for those guys.
he
But,
just
like,
wants to brew his beers, his good beers, and make sure his customers are satisfied.
his 5 customers that are going to buy a keg a week that he can manage. That's awesome.
And I mean,
Yeah.
think about it too. I mean, there was a law created that brewery Sailfish could have 8 locations, 8 different licenses, and sell
Self-distribute,
100%.
yeah.
You know, like
Right.
I mean, there's definitely laws in favor of that. Now, I understand your point. Like,
Right.
if you only get such mass,
If you're not looking to be, us, where we probably dump
Well, it's
more
like,
beer than they sell.
You know,
here,
certain
you know?
states have
Right.
certain barrelage limits too. Like Colorado's 10,000 barrels a year. Once you
Right.
go above that, you have to go through the distributor
Right.
at that point.
think
Which-
Ohio too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few states that have that, like, that threshold, which makes sense, and I'm
Right.
not sure 10,000 barrels makes sense, but, I'm thinking more like 1,000 or 2,000, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's there's got to be some middle ground associated with that for those guys that exist, like a Side Door,
Right.
to help them. But again, in the day, they're not making money off of that side of it. They're more making money off of open up 2 more Side Doors and self-distributing
Right.
that to be successful.
Right.
And I think that law benefits the craft brewery more than anything else.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Maybe it just comes down to your actual brewery and your style of beer, because I feel like I remember sitting in so many conversations with Mike Hawker about our tap room's the money, everything we do in distro is nothing, it's nothing. And meaning in the sense of maybe it just comes down to every single brewery. Like, I guess maybe the autonomy to decide what your brewery wants to do, and the 3-tier system kind of blocks that, but also...
Well, I don't want to dive into it, but maybe my 5th Oktoberfest is loosening the lips a little bit.
Maybe me
no,
too.
No,
Hee hee.
no. There's some.
We're on hour 3, guys. So
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're gonna wrap this up in a second.
Yeah, we probably should, but there are some people out there who don't see the value of their wholesale partner.
Right.
Think it gets in the way, and I think the sooner that shit ends, the better for
Well,
everybody.
it goes
right?
back to you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And once they actually
That's
start doing it
it.
themselves, they realize how difficult it is.
But let me interject too. I mean, I do think that potential, like in any industry, you might have distributors out there that don't focus on
Well, that's a
craft
fair
or,
point.
or find it relevant, right? Because it was so saturated, such a thing.
Or you sign with them
and
as
then
a
it
supplier at
fizzled
the
out.
time, it made
Right.
sense, and it may not make sense now.
Right.
Yeah.
Or in distro, like, things make sense. I feel like in the general vicinity, but once they get out in a distro, it's like it's same thing. Like they want to go statewide, they want to do all these things, but like it just doesn't make sense.
I mean, I think for a distributor's point of view, right? We want to sell brands that connects with the consumer.
Right.
Ultimately, you said it earlier, I believe. Velocity, like your sell through, you want to be the best distributing partner to our retailers, right? And if your brands just don't work, it's tough, and it's a tough conversation, but it's reality, right? Like you can do everything you think is the best thing for your business and your brands, and then at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't agree.
Well, it's
You
and
can't
you start to
defeat
expose
that.
the underbelly of the industry too, because you take a Sailfish our size. I'm not saying we're big, but we have a presence,
Right.
And we're with a certain wholesaler that may be a brain collector. They're just going to shelve us.
Or how
That's
about
a difficult
again,
situation to be in. Where like, hey, we have no choice at this point. We're in a book of business that we cannot really make ourselves relevant in, even though we do a good job and we'll replicate what we've done here locally.
2 miles up north, we're crushing it. 2 miles down south, we're not.
But I mean,
Sure,
like
yeah.
a good example of that is back to I'm sorry, y'all. Please don't send me daggers. But hard tea, like you can put everything out there. That's the best thing. But like if the consumer doesn't like it, the consumer doesn't like it. So it's a very
That
hard.
just wasn't very good. To Philip's point, the juice didn't work.
I mean, but that's what I mean. Like that's a
That was
point.
kind
It's
of
just like
mine and Dave's baby. Okay.
yeah.
We
trust me.
take responsibility for that,
Trust me,
and
I
we had to take it
know.
out back and take care of it. So
I actually blame that on Ryan Episcopo.
I was about to reference him in the back. So yeah.
He's on the phone
on the
right
phone,
now.
yeah.
Well,
Fucking
hey, Ryan.
nepotism. He's on the phone. Not even looking.
Yeah.
Special guest appearance by nepotism Ryan.
Come
Smith.
answer for your sins, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, get your sweet face over here. Come on, we have things to talk about. He looks scared.
Ryan Episcopo, off-premise sales
All right.
manager
Here
of
you go.
Southern Eagle,
Put these
coming
on.
down.
So, question number one, Ryan, what do you think of Philip's remarks that Southern Eagle is into nepotism?
Oh, jeez.
Go ahead.
Like you care about
Just
You don't have to answer that question.
you don't have to.
I think
We
really they
were-
were trying
we
to
were-
bust your balls over hard tea.
Yeah, we were talking about the hard tea idea.
I mean, it was a good idea on paper.
No,
I mean,
it was the best idea on
You
paper.
sound
It's-
like Adam Sandler speaking into the.
No.
okay. So it was a good idea on paper. It's nice to have the partnership and the availability to come here and pitch the idea, work with you, create the idea, and hopefully bring light to it in the market. But obviously, it didn't happen. But
That was a very political response,
That
Ryan.
was-
I appreciate
by the way,
that.
that was the most.
I like the
that was
obviously.
That was the most mature response I've ever heard regarding.
Yeah.
it. That was
Yeah.
incredible.
Because we're all like 4 beers deep, and we're like Ryan, come over.
No.
All right, well, Ryan's here. Let's kind of wrap this up because we're on hour 3 at this point. But
Man.
there was one thing we want to talk about, and I think to summarize today's conversation, Philip, again, thanks for being on today.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, we didn't offend you too much today, but
Oh no, I only
The-
brought up a movie that made his family look bad twice.
And he literally
Didn't even
asked me-
think about it. I'm like,
It's okay. It's I
That movie
understand.
came out in 2009. In my
I
defense.
understand the British, right? They don't really understand like how they come across.
there's no
Hey,
tact at all.
they had an empire to run. They couldn't do anything else.
But the summary today was we as a beer producer need to come together
Right.
to make beer more approachable, more romanticized, more of something that's differentiates itself to continue it growing beyond the years.
Right.
So with that being said,
Oh, I have a thing.
Bud Bowl.
Oh,
right.
boy.
All
Brian.
right. So
He's got a big ask here
it's because people
from London.
Well, bring the
from
Bud Bowl to
Bedford with
London.
love.
Bud Bowl from London.
No, but here's the thing. You're talking about one of the greatest marketing campaigns in the history of beer, the Bud Bowl. And for whatever reason, it just ended abruptly one year. It's never been brought back. And people, can you please talk to someone and be like, hey, Bud Bowl 2025, it's got to be a thing.
Kyle, if you're listening at Anheuser-Busch,
So that's Kyle.at.anheuser-busch.com. Kyle, Bud Bowl, bring it back.
yeah, no, I mean, look,
Like Busch Light,
hold
Busch
on.
Light versus
Emily needs a microphone.
Emily needs a microphone. Can we do the puppy bowl mixed with the Bud Bowl? Mix them together. Puppies and beer.
Dogs
Come on. Why are we fighting that?
Great Danes versus Bud Light is not
Women want men. We all want the puppies and the beer.
No,
all right?
but what I'm saying, you can have Busch Light versus Nick Ultra in the Bud Bowl. That would be incredible.
Would it be
Ryan,
the
I
Red
need
Bull?
my microphone back.
It would be the AB Bowl, Bud Light. Bud Dry's not a thing anymore. You know, like that was.
Bud Dry was a thing back then.
Bud
He was
Dry?
the quarterback of the Bud Light team.
What is Bud Dry?
We couldn't get
Why
rid of it,
ask
don't
why?
I
worry.
bet you wouldn't
Why
be able
ask
to get rid of
why?
it.
Try
I've
Bud Dry.
never have heard of it. Why would we be
I love
drinking
this
Bud
guy.
Dry? I don't want a Bud Dry.
Well, I mean, he's spot on. Why ask why?
Why ask why? Try Bud Dry.
Yeah.
No, so anyway, I know like it's coming off jokey, but for real, talk to somebody, bring the Bud Bowl back. It'll be amazing.
Yeah.
What about the Sailfish Bowl?
So that was something I made
Brian
in
He,
my
showed-
free
he,
time.
showed me,
Yeah.
he showed me a video and it was horrible.
It was the worst. Listen, it was great
Dave
for the
would,
time.
Dave would not approve that.
No, he gave me
Dave
the green
doesn't
light to
approve
put
a
it on
lot,
all the
to be
socials.
honest.
Yeah.
Put some money behind it too. It
was a good effort.
It was a good
Definitely
effort.
good effort, yeah,
It was
for
Old
sure.
Florida versus Sailfish.
Hey,
Takes
Dave,
a lot.
before you wrap up, I did just want to say thank you for the partnership. Thanks
Yeah,
for
of
having
course,
me
man.
on.
Same, The best.
You know, you
My
guys
favorite
do.
part's Ryan still standing here with his headphones.
Yeah.
No mic.
He's listening.
I know, as you should. You can have the mic
Ryan,
back.
Ryan,
No.
anything to add today? Anything to add? Will we wrap up here?
Whatever kind of
Thanks for
shirt
the
he's
guest
got on
appearance.
right now.
No, I mean I love it. I love where the brewery's been to. I mean I started off going to the brewery down the street when
It's awesome.
until you expanded here on 2nd Street.
Yeah,
So-
Ryan's a good example. He stuck with us as our beer got better.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, I thought it was always good, and you know, the local ties here for me being a
That's not what he says behind your back.
I know that. That's
You
Ryan.
know.
Yeah.
just to see what Philip says about Fort Pierce people like
I know,
me
yeah.
that work for him. But no, it's great. I
He
love
moved to
what,
Jupiter for a year, and there you go.
I love the direction.
It's Palm Beach life.
Oh man.
Just kidding. Just edit that.
Man, Dave, this one went off the rails. This is awesome. It's exactly what we wanted.
No,
I
but
knew it was going to get there. No.
But,
man.
Oh my
the
God.
way
the
the brew's
beatbox?
moved.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, Dave, did you know that they're in every 7-Eleven in the
A
world?
lot going on there.
Yeah.
I was supposed to just be in the office today, so I was like, I'm not going to the market.
Well, I
So
appreciate
Beatbox-
you doing it today, yeah.
His
Beatbox
belly's
was,
gotten a little bit bigger too.
Well, Sailfish Fort Pierce is the best mobile office in the world, man. So, welcome
All
to
right,
where
guys.
that
I
should
get,
be.
a,
for
I get a
sure.
Mars in right now, so it's all good.
Not a bad day.
Damn
Not a
real.
bad day. Well, guys, thanks again. Philip, again, thanks for being on. Thanks for putting with us today. Thanks for answering questions and being candid as you possibly could
Yeah.
during the conversation.
Yeah.
Brian, as always, thanks. Emily, thanks for joining us back here.
Always.
Thanks for coming to your podcast.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy
She
to be
definitely
back
owned the
on my
podcast today.
podcast.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Ryan, thanks for the guest
Y'all-
appearance.
Just remember, fat beer.
Yeah, I was going to
French
say.
fries and
Now,
Caesars.
guys,
I
when
mean-
are we going to get French fries, Caesars, and fat beers? When's that happening?
Yeah.
Anytime, any day, any place, because everyone's got salads, everyone's got fries and beers. So, and we've put Sailfish fucking everywhere. So let's go get us fat beers and.
You'll edit that for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Nope. That's staying in.
All right.
mean-
We're not live or anything.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks again today. Thanks again for everybody joining Florida's Drinking Report. We
Right.
drank a lot today.
I got
and,
shushed.
And Emily got shushed.
What do we got? What do we got coming up?
Beers.
I think next is. Remind me, who's next? Casey Scott. in
Casey
Vero Beach.
Scott.
Yeah.
That's
All
a
right.
huge
Casey
one.
Scott in
Yeah.
Vero
That's
Beach.
a good
Yeah.
one.
So we'll be up in Vero Beach. Casey's
Love
a
his
great
artwork.
guy. Known
And
him for
then
a long
after
time.
that, we've got Foamy in the Head, also known as Jamie and Mike Liccamelli.
Yeah.
We got
That's
them
good.
And
girls.
then after that,
Yeah.
we've got.
I'm curious on how Jamie's going to do on camera.
I think
He's
freeze
gonna do
up.
like me.
He's gonna freeze
No.
up.
No, he's not.
Do you
Mike's
think?
gonna
No.
come out. Jamie's gonna freeze up.
Not a
No,
chance.
Jamie's not freezing up.
Not a
so
chance.
before we end, like, I want to put it out there.
Okay.
We're thinking about doing like a social media thing where I want natural beer consumers to try our portfolio and give us candid feedback.
Have
Talk
we
to
not
this guy
talked
right
about
here.
it? No. Have we
We'll
not
talk
talked
about that
it?
off air. You don't-
Off
you
air.
don't wanna
We
do it.
got-
He's English. No.
Right. So I'll tell you, it's a terrible idea, right?
American consumers.
We've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
talking about this, Philip.
We'll
We've been.
try competition beers too.
Oh no, you don't want to do that either.
Brian,
By the way,
with the
this
Twisted
is
Tea. Don't
an
do that.
incredible idea.
Okay,
I'm
let's
telling
let
you,
him-
it's a real-
Greatest thing is we can edit whatever we don't want to post.
I have 900 videos on my phone telling me like, oh no, I'm never having that. No way. Like, yeah,
Here's the
But
idea.
you're kind of a celebrity now, so I can't use you.
it's fine.
All
I'm
right,
thinking
so-
Jamie might.
Jamie would
All
be
you have to do
pretty
is get a
solid.
golf
Jamie and Mike
cart.
Liccamelli
Like a mic
show.
on,
Yeah.
on the street kind of thing. Like, hey, try this. Like,
Just get a
Right.
golf
I don't know
cart.
how Mike would come across, but
Mike comes out of his shell very well.
Yes.
You need a girl.
So honestly,
first
if you
of all.
pair those two up,
It's a
dovetail off
great
the
team.
podcast, it'll be amazing.
How
Yeah.
again? How is it that we're always all talking about, man? You need a girl on the sales team because that's it. Because you want more women drinking beer.
I'm sorry,
Period,
did you
point
quit?
blank.
Didn't
Did
you
I
quit?
what?
You quit, right?
Cork or quit?
Quit. Didn't you quit?
Quit what?
This is
Southern Eagle.
no, she graduated.
I said,
Oh, she graduated
yeah,
to
Oh.
Dano's Tequila.
Please, me and
Shut
John
up.
Lundy were the dynamic duo nobody saw coming. Like, let's be real on that one.
Certainly, John.
Listen.
Give it to Lundy. He'll be the good street guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
all you gotta do
No,
is
but
take
Jamie
a
and
golf
Mike
cart.
would actually be pretty solid.
They'd crush
together.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely crush
Yeah.
it.
Take a
If
golf
Mike-
cart.
Mike grew out
get
the
some
mustache
swag,
again.
Get some swag. Go out and do it so Mike style, where you're just like right around the golf cart. You go down the street and you're like, "Hey, for a koozie, answer this question." And
So
point blank.
you want Jamie and Mike to do that? Do you want people
Yes.
to be on camera?
Yes.
I think
'Cause
we
if
gave
it-
Mike his golf cart too.
You did. I was there for that winning that I
Yeah.
seriously helped sell.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Throwback Thursday.
Yeah.
All right.
Guys, thanks again. Florida's Rigging Report. Join us next time for Casey Scott and Vero Beach. And
More opinions.
and more Emily, apparently. So, yes.
Thank you.
Philip, thanks
Or
again,
not.
guys. Thanks again. Bye.
9-hour
Bye.
podcast.
Goodbye.
That was awesome.